pretty much any game out there that has a skill tree or ability menu or whatever has some abilities where you go, oh wow, that's actually pretty good, and you buy it immediately, as well as other abilities where you go, literally, why would I ever get that? And of course, you never get that. Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is understandably no exception. For this video, I'm going to look at some abilities from the abilities menu, or that are granted by rings that are dumb in various ways. So to start us off, I'm going to talk about what I kind of think is not just the best ability in the game, but just might be the best ability in the whole series. It's for Sea Dog, as can be seen from its name. Sea Dog's skill, Perfect Guard Reversal. Now, perfect guards in the game are just when you press the guard button right as you get hit. Despite the skill's name, however, it has nothing to do with perfect guards, and that's because it's actually a counterattack. Typically, the counterattack input in these games is the fighting stance button plus heavy attack, but this one is guard plus heavy attack. Then you swipe with your two swords at the enemy and deal some pretty generous damage. Now, two downsides with it are that the Sea Dog style can guard from any direction, but the counter can only hit enemies attacking from the front. And the other is that it does have a bit of end lag, and so if it manages to miss or something, there's a chance someone's gonna king hit you. But a big trade-off for the powerful counters of the Yakuza games is that if you miss the timing, you usually just do some useless kick, or you get smacked in the front of the head. If you miss the timing with this attack, you block the attack. You can even counter the special guard break attacks enemies do. You can't counter the deadly attacks, but you can just press evade anywhere between the start of the animation and the start of the sun exploding and do a mortal reversal. So just sit there holding guard for an entire fight and then occasionally press heavy attack and you win, easy peasy. Then another ability that I thought was actually going to be bad, and then I unlocked it and, well, yeah, I was right, it sucks. Either it does actually suck, or it's bugged, or I'm just missing something. But Sea Dog's skill Cutlass Heave Ho says that it increases the attack range of the boomerang cutlass attack. Now, a reasonable person might assume that that means that it increases the distance you throw them, but maybe it's actually the amount of damage it can deal. I doubt it, but at the same time, it wouldn't completely ignore that possibility, because after comparing upgraded and unupgraded throw distances, I don't know, is there even a difference? It looks like it throws the exact same distance. There's a slight homing effect to the cutlasses when thrown at enemies, so maybe it increases their homing capabilities or something. It seems like they stay out for the same duration regardless of upgrades too, so as far as I can tell, the skill sucks, because it does nothing. Conversely, the upgrades you get for the pistol and the hook thing, oh boy. The pistol is very strong, and the heavy attack charge cut through whatever Superman thing, that is also very strong. I don't really need to say much else, because the pistol obliterates groups, and the chain hook can obliterate groups and bosses. But here's a little fun fact. The pistol ring decreases the pistol's charge time. So I went and tested this by fully charging the pistol with and without the ring, and found out that it decreases the charge time by an overwhelming 20 frames, which means that at 60 frames per second, this is a third of a second, or 333 milliseconds. Wow, that's something. You wanna know something else that sucks though? Something that sucks so bad that I honestly thought I deluded myself into thinking it was in the game until I did it by accident on a stream recently. Why, it's none other than the Mad Dog get-up attack. Yes, it has one. I can only assume it's tied to the rather useful knockdown evasion ability, where when you get knocked over, you can press evade and do a quick get-up animation. Sea Dog gets a get-up heat action, like a fair number of games have, and a fair few of the games also have different get-up attacks you can use once you get knocked down, either before you land or after you land. For example, here are some of Yagumi's attacks in Lost Judgment that he can use. These are all done with the heavy attack button. So when you get knocked down in Mad Dog, if you mash heavy attack before you land, nothing happens. But if you mash heavy attack after you land, he does a slow standing up animation, which you can get by pressing any of the face buttons. But if you get knocked down and wait for like 2 seconds, boom. Why? Why is it like this? It's the Thug Style one from Yakuza 0, which that one works perfectly fine. See, I don't know what's wrong with it, and who knows, maybe Sea Dog also has something like this, but I barely even knew this one existed, so I wouldn't know. Here's something pretty useful. Mad Dog's Light Evade Strikes. These are also from Yakuza 0's Thug Style, and just like in that game, they're pretty quick and useful for cancelling attacks and whatever. They're not strong on their own, but they're a great way to get some damage started or extended. Then on the complete other side of the spectrum, the fuck's wrong with the heavy evade strikes in both styles? These things are so laughably slow. Like, at least I can do a heat action with the Mad Dog one. Look at them. They suck. Ah well. Here's a series of good skills now. Sea Dog Catch and Slash, the ability that lets you continue a combo after throwing your cutlasses, is actually really useful, unlike the one that increases its range. Whenever you catch the cutlasses, either without the upgrade or without attacking, you get locked into a 15-year binding contract with the animation that can only be broken when an enemy decides to obliterate your skull. But if you attack after catching them, well, you pretty seamlessly transition into the standard combo. It's nothing groundbreaking considering it requires you using the cutlass boomerang attack in the first place, but far out, it makes it a shitload more useful. And speaking of, There's also the Cutlass Ring, which it's kind of whack. It sends them flying out for a while, and during that whole time you're kind of locked into whatever you're doing. But I'm not going to lie to your face, and I'll admit plain and simple that I have a shitload of fun using this ring, even though it's kind of bad. Then there's Mad Dog Trick Savage and Serpent. Savage is the thing that lets you mash heavy attack and do a big combo. This is quite literally savage because sometimes the enemy just stops hitting you and decides that you're free to slice the shit out of them. You can also pretty easily cancel it, so there's really no harm in going crazy. Then there's Serpent, the Thunder God Fist attack that launches enemies and is the only move in the whole game that launches without the need of a combo. It's pretty fast, can guard break if the enemy's blocking, has some tough as nails super armor, but Majima does the pissiest slide forward when you do it, even when fully charged. That's all good, because if you miss it, you can just do it again, like instantly. There's literally no downsides to this shit. There's also a set of abilities relating to stuff like Mad Dog Serpent attack, where when fulfilling certain conditions, they'll fill up a chunk of the madness gauge. I was actually going to classify them as bad because the madness gauge is pretty easy to fill anyway until I tested them out, and it seems like they give you as much of a charge on the gauge as a heat action does. And what's more, whether it's a bug or intentional, I don't know, but if you kill the last enemy in a battle with a heat action, you don't get any madness charge, but if you do the same thing with one of these abilities, you do get the charge. So hell yeah, I'm free to spam Big Monkey. And speaking of Big Monkey, look, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like the Shark's the best one, and the Chimp's actually kind of shit. But who knows, maybe I'm just being stupid. But anyway, from here on, I'm going to look at a bunch of rings. And I'll start with some that don't need explaining, but are all Omega good. The Ring of Stone, which prevents your guard from breaking when you block bullets, is insanely useful considering every man and their sea dog, haha, see what I did there, has a gun. Then there's the M ring, which gives you heat whenever you take damage, and is probably the best ring in the game considering how easy it is to get and how early you can get it. But of course, there's also the Ring of Champions, which is this game's War God talisman, so therefore your heat constantly charges when it's equipped, and then pretend that there's footage of me having it unlocked right here. But now these next few things are actually going to require some data analysis, and so as a qualified economist, and that's not a joke, I'll be conducting this research in a very scientific way. Which is to say, it's the same thing I did however long ago in Infinite Wealth, where I just picked one guy and beat the shit out of him over and over. Fortunately, unlike the turn-based games, so long as your stats don't change or anything, damage values don't fluctuate in a damage range in the action games, or at least I don't think they do, because unfortunately, unlike the turn-based games, there are no damage numbers in this game, so there's going to be a little bit of approximation. Now, just so you're aware, in all of my recordings with this white Matsumoto's Shave Ice shirt on Mad Dog, I didn't have all attack power upgrades unlocked, but then all of the ones with the black 88T's shirt, I did. But between each individual test, I made sure to keep my attack stat consistent unless I say otherwise, and also for some fucked reason, sometimes the health bar was like slightly misaligned. I really don't know what caused that. The first thing I determined was something I was super happy to see. The perfect guard counter attacks that you do when you block a guard break attack both consume a full heat bar and both fill up the madness gauge when you do it. They also deal a little more damage than a standard heat action. I'm not sure if they are affected by the stale heat mechanic which is in this game, because sometimes it's just not in a game, but basically they're stronger than doing a single person heat action. And I say that because I did a couple of more tests and found that this Cutlass Throw heat action, which can hit 1 to 3 enemies, deals slightly less damage than a heat action that hits one enemy, and all of the weapons I could grab in this area all did the same amount of damage as each other with their respective heat actions, which was more than a single person one. This was surprising though, because I would have thought a stronger weapon would deal more damage, but then again, I don't know any of the values, I just mostly assume that like a bench is stronger than a traffic cone, and if this game had equipment maybe I could get a better understanding, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Weapon heat actions in this game deal more damage than a heat action that hits a single enemy, and then heat actions that hit multiple enemies deal less damage, but maybe it's proportional to how many enemies it hits, or it just has to be multiple enemies, I don't know. But there's barely a difference anyway, so who cares? With that out of the way, I wanted to test out the Ring of Flowers. This thing increases the power of heat actions that make use of nearby terrain. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I tested by using Essence of Stabbing. This counted as a nearby terrain heat action, so its power was increased. Barely. When it comes to heat actions that use terrain, there's only Essence of Head Crush, Wall Scaling, and both versions of Stabbing. There's also a fourth, an Essence of Tragic Downfall, but that's an insta-kill, so it doesn't matter. I'm not sure if nearby terrain includes weapons you can find on the ground, but it probably doesn't. So that means that this slight increase only applies to 3 heat actions. But now I'm sure at this point, Future Me will chime in and tell you the exact increase by measuring the amount of pixels to determine the percentage increase, so that way we can see if it's worth taking up one of your 6 slots it can go on, or if you're better off with something else. Hello, Future Me here. I couldn't be fucked. There was also the Ring of Frost and Ring of Earth, which without testing, I would have just chucked straight into the list of shit that sucks. They both do the same thing of increasing the stats of all rings you have on, with the Ring of Frost increasing attack and the Ring of Earth increasing defense. But when you equip one or even both of them, your stats don't change at all beyond the stats that the rings themselves give you. But after giving myself exactly 440 attack both with and without the Ring of Frost, you can see the attack with the Ring of Frost actually did more damage. But once again, like, barely. I went and gave myself 490 attack, and that ended up dealing more, so the attack increase in this test was somewhere from 1 to 49. Obviously it's not going to be 1, but if it was something like an overall 10% increase to your ring attack stat, it would be 484. That seems reasonable. So I then went and gave myself as much attack as I could with what I had, which was 2,420 attack. I also equipped the Ring of Frost, which lowered my attack by 50. If it's a 10% increase, theoretically my attack should be 2,607 with the Ring of Frost on. So after doing the same hit action twice, yeah, it's definitely higher with the Ring of Frost. But is it 10% higher? I don't know, because maybe it's a 10% increase to each ring, or maybe it's even just a plus 10 to each ring. Maybe it's to every ring except the Ring of Frost. No clue. And I assume the Ring of Earth would work the same way, but defense is a lot harder to test. Regardless, it definitely works, and considering the only two thumb rings that increase more attack are only an extra 50 to 80 attack, and considering you'd be a fool not to use the Hanya ring, this actually could be pretty useful to chuck on your thumb. And just for fun, I did a hit action with no rings equipped, and one with attack as high as I could get it, and it was quite the damage increase. So overall, it seems like your attack stat from your rings can make a massive difference, although I even chucked it onto easy at one point and didn't notice a difference in damage, so I don't know what this boss's defense is or anything, but in the end, these rings are pretty good. But anyway, last and most certainly least, we have what I think is the pinnacle of uselessness, and that's this piece of shit ability that keeps on coming back in every game. Who is it at RGG Studio that keeps on insisting this is worth spending the upgrade points on? In every game it's in, it's worthless. Restaurant items always heal so much, they're always so cheap, and eating all of the items on a menu always gives you some sort of bonus, so why would you want to potentially fill up on bread before the main course? Well, one thing to consider is that in this game, eating any food or drinking any alcohol at a restaurant also fills up a bit of your heat gauge, and the amount it fills up is based on how much health the thing restores. So maybe this ability increases that too? That'd be pretty useful actually. I mean, heat in the end is more valuable than health, which is why you can get so many items to heal, but staminans and taurinas, or however you pronounce them, are generally more expensive and harder to acquire than a tough... Of course it doesn't. Of course it fucking doesn't. Anyway, here's the actual best ability in the game, and that's of course your ability to subscribe. Hey, see what I did there? I know, I'm so clever. I've never made that joke before. People tend to like when I do videos like these, so hopefully you like this one. And if you did, well, I made some other videos like this one on abilities from all different games. Although that was back when I was terrible at audio balancing and the music was always too loud. I don't know how I did that. But if you'd like a part 2 to this video, then I promise you that if this video hits 5 billion likes, then I still won't do a part 2 because there's like 10 abilities in this game.